Wellness check to all the Tar Heel fans out there. We start in the fourth quarter. UNC trailing here 21-10. The Tar Heels pitch the ball to Davion Gauze, who runs it in for the score, make it a 21-16 game. UNC would score the ensuing 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game as Bill Belichick searches for his first conference win late fourth quarter here. UNC just driving to tie or win the game, but Gio Lopez finds Nathan Leacock, who's going in, you see here, to the end zone, but just coughs up the ball right before crossing the plane there. Brent Austin jumps on it, and that'll be all she wrote for the Tar Heels. They fall to 2-4 on the year. No wins over Power 4 opponents yet. It was a typical Bill Belichick post-game press conference. Let's take a listen.
Competitive game here. A couple of big mistakes hurt us. But, there are a lot of things we could have done better in all three phases. So, this game a little bit short today. You're a couple inches, I guess, on a touchdown, on the fumble. But, just keep working on the things that obviously we need to do a better job of, third and long on defense, third down conversions on offense, ball security, things like that.
Go ahead. Yeah, Jeremiah Holloway with Inside Carolina. Bill, of course, you did mention the fumble at the end. Did you get a chance to talk to Nathan after the play or after the game, anything like that?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
You've been a part of 8 Super Bowls, 333 career wins. What brought you back to coaching, especially college football?
Yeah, I've had that same question 75 times. I'm sure we got it on the transcript.
Go ahead.
Bill, Stuart Mandel from The Athletic. Obviously, the first 3 times you played a Power 4 foe, it wasn't competitive still in the second half. How much do you take by the fact that this game did come down to the wire this time in terms of what you're working on with your team?
It is what it is.
All right, so were those valid questions? I don't know. You be the judge at home. For much more on this, let's go ahead and welcome you inside our CBS Sports HQ studios. Tom Fornelli and Chip Patterson joining us here for more on last night and really what's next. So, guys, with the loss, UNC now falls to 2-4 on the season under first-year head coach Bill Belichick. Focusing kind of, Tom, on the now and this team, where does the team go from here?
Well, I mean, if you look at the situation with their season and the way things are playing out, they can still get to a bowl game. And I would argue that at least last night they weren't embarrassed because it was a close game. And the last time we saw this team playing against Clemson, it was a defense that looked like it had absolutely no idea what it was supposed to be doing at any given time on the field. At least in this game last night, they were able to slow down a pretty good Cal offense with a very good Cal quarterback and keep themselves in the game. They were much better tackling. They were much better at their assignments, but you still come up short. You're still 2-4. You're still yet to beat a Power 4 opponent, and you've got a long uphill climb ahead of you here if you do want to get to a bowl game. And I feel like we're giving them participation awards here. I don't think that's why Bill Belichick was brought in and paid $10 million just to, hey, we didn't look too bad against Cal on Friday night.
Funny thing, guys, to win college football games, you have to score points. To win college football games, you have to take care of the football. You just saw on that graphic right there that the final 2 possessions ended in a lost fumble. Well, how about the very first possession off of a bye week was also a lost fumble? Some of the details here offensively are just really, really disappointing. That they are entering this game day average right at number 122 out of 136 teams, averaging about 18.7 points per game. Tom is right. Defensively, it was nice that they didn't get carved up by a very good Cal quarterback in Jaron Sagapalatelli. But at the same time, I do think that you got to know that as you're looking at the rest of this schedule, as you're looking at the ACC opponents that you will have, with no more off weeks to try to get things set, I mean, it is just going to be a long uphill climb because we know that Virginia can score. We know that Duke can score. We know that C.J. Bailey and NC State are very dangerous. And sitting at 2-4, that is a narrow, narrow path if this team is going to reach bowl eligibility. So, yeah, I'm not really into the moral victories. The fact that they didn't get carved up defensively, I think should show some steps forward, especially as that defense is missing its best player in the secondary, Thad Dixon, currently shut down with an injury for a while. But, man, offensively, they are one of the worst power conference offenses in a whole week off. After they took a united front that they weren't making any changes offensively, I just don't know where the spark is going to come from.
Well, better come soon because they have a tough test ahead. As you mentioned, an uphill climb, and it starts next week against a ranked Virginia team at home. So we talked a little bit about the team, what the rest of the season could possibly look like for them, what needs to happen. But let's get to the burning question that everybody wants to know. Chip, what is next for their head coach, Bill Belichick?
I think Bill Belichick really is invested in trying to get this thing moving, but the stubbornness to not be making some changes is something that is going to test the patience of the University of North Carolina, because I do think that there was an opportunity with the off week coming out of Clemson to maybe shake things up with the offensive, either just play calling responsibilities, coaching staffs, but yet when we heard from all of the assistants at this past week leading into the Cal game, they were very stubborn. They said, look, we are not making any changes. We're going to continue to work on the process, and the process breeds results. And look, all of those process breeds results catchphrases sound exactly like Bill Belichick, sound exactly like Nick Saban and everybody else from that coaching tree. But the problem is the patience for the results, when the results are so poor, is going to really start to wear thin over time. And so, whether it is looking for new options in terms of the way they play, whether it is trying to get a little bit creative in terms of the play calling, this is a group that, again, if you cannot score points, you are not going to win football games in 2025. This is not the NFL where you want everything to come down to a last-minute 25-21 type result. So for Bill Belichick, I think he's invested in the process, but if the process continues to breed poor results, they've got to get rid of the stubbornness that is keeping them from shaking things up.
Yeah, listen, I'm all about trusting the process, but the problem is your process involves a very flawed roster. So even if Bill Belichick is bought in for the rest of this season and he really wants to get into this job and fix things, it's just hard to see it being fixed this year because, Chip, you mentioned the offense and maybe possibly changing the play caller or changing your philosophy on offense. They still have Gio Lopez at quarterback, and they still have a roster that is not quite as good as the rest of the ACC rosters that they're going to be going against. Like, you look at what's in New England right now, they have Drake May. Before that, they had Sam Howell. North Carolina is a program that over the years has been producing NFL quarterbacks. And now you go to Gio Lopez, who you brought in from South Alabama to run your offense. And it's not a knock on Lopez. He's a good player. It's just he's not the kind of player that's going to be able to make a difference on his own. And you've seen that the way that this offense has struggled. So I think Bill Belichick's looking at the situation, and he probably realizes my defense needs to be better because it's really the only thing I have that I can rely on, my experience and my expertise in that department. So I think that's probably what they're going to lean into the rest of the year.
Tough ask for UNC fans to trust the process, though, I'm sure, at this point. And you mentioned it, Tom, earlier. They weren't embarrassed last night in terms of it not being a blowout, right? I want to be clear because I think I speak for all three of us here that there are no moral losses in the game of football, right? However, last night they did look a little bit more competitive. Kind of with that being said, how loud should the calls be right now for Bill Belichick to resign?
I mean, I think if I'm a North Carolina fan, I feel like I've been sold a false bill of goods. You bring him in, you're giving him $10 million a year, and you just look at the way the program's working, and yeah, okay, sure. You saw the letter released by their general manager, Mike Lombardi, a couple weeks ago telling you to just wait. They need time to bring players in. You literally just brought in this team. Like, this is what you did in the offseason. Why am I going to trust you in this regime to be able to bring those players, especially after the players around the country that you might be going after in the transfer portal? They've been watching this team play football. They're seeing all the headlines about all the crazy stuff going off the field. How are you going to convince somebody that Chapel Hill is the place for you to be, and how are you going to convince them that we're going to win football games here?
You're talking about calls from the North Carolina fans, Jordan. That is emotional. And we are sitting here in the wake of what happened at Penn State in very emotional times. Let me tell you what's going to get right to the emotions of North Carolina football fans. Over the course of the next 6 games are 4 of the most emotional opponents that North Carolina football fans care about. That is NC State, that is Duke, that is Wake Forest, and that is Virginia. Those are some of the oldest rivalries. This is not a North Carolina team that competes for national championships. So So it's about what you do against your rivals that are regional, against your rivals that are local, the people that when you go to church or when you go to school, you're going to have to hear it from. And if North Carolina football is embarrassed against some of North Carolina football's biggest local rivals, then all of a sudden you're going to see those emotions, you're going to see that passion really show up. So I don't know about calls for resign. We already had a full crazy week of reporting and squashing reports. Now let's get down into what the fan base really thinks. Let's look at Kenan Memorial Stadium for the final home games, because the people that will let us know whether this is working and whether they believe in the future are going to be the people who show up or don't show up for those home games for some of the biggest games of the year when it comes to your local regional rivals.
We'll wait and see how it all plays out. Wishing you the absolute best, Chip Patterson. We'll continue to keep us posted, I'm sure, both of you guys, on the Cover 3 podcast. It is your go-to college football podcast. The guys got you covered on all of the biggest stories, the biggest games. We'll have a podcast coming out later tonight, right?
We will. Our live reaction show tonight at 11:30 Eastern, live.
Nothing like it. Scan that QR code on your screen and watch and listen wherever you get your podcasts.